There is no scholar in any college or university in the Western world who teaches classics, ancient history, New Testament, early Christianity, any related field, who doubts that Jesus existed.
Alrighty, thank you, Bart Ehrman, for your wise insight. As always, I know Bart Ehrman is not a Christian, but I actually do like listening to him. For the most part, even though obviously he believes differently than I do, he is, I would say he's rational about it. So he doesn't. Like this example, he doesn't just write it off like, well, Jesus never, no, Jesus existed. He has seen the evidence. Now he doesn't agree with where I go with it, but he admits that, Jesus did exist. Jesus died by crucifixion. I think he says Jesus died by crucifixion. I'm pretty sure, but generally I do like Bart Ehrman. We disagree. Pray for him. I really do. But this next point kind of ties in with the previous one a little bit. So, what if it's just a myth? What if it's not real? If it's made up? Now there's a main issue with this, and this is mainly because leading mythology experts say that it takes 80 to 90 years at a minimum for a myth to develop. So that means that from the time Jesus died, it has to be at least a minimum 80 to 90 years after that before myth can develop. And the reason why is because people who were alive, like you can't start pushing a myth if people who are alive are still there. They'll just say, no, that isn't true. That didn't happen. Be like, so this year is the, I don't remember what, how many years it is. I'll have that here in a minute. I'll get to it. But so 80 to 90 years is the minimum it takes for a myth. So we need to be able to place the writings of the New Testament to prior to that, because then it's in the place of the people who actually were there. Okay, now there's the possibility that they're lying. We can get to that in a minute. But right now, I'm going to put it back in the hands of the people that would have actually seen Jesus there. They would have been witnesses to what was going on. It's not second, third, fourth hand accounts. So there is a very important thing that happened, and it happened around the year 70 AD. I am a bit of a history nut, and you can actually go, there's some documentaries and stuff on YouTube. You can actually find some stuff on this, and it's interesting if you're into this kind of stuff. If you're not, then you probably won't find it interesting. But around 70 AD, there was something called the Roman-Jewish Wars, so the Jewish Rebellion. Basically what happened was the Jews were like, you know what, we're done dealing with you, Rome, so up yours. And Rome didn't take that very lightly. So they sent all these soldiers down to Jerusalem. And this was actually like 90, or not 90. I think this was, they actually started, it was about 4 years before, and there were several other towns and stuff. They were trying to quash some rebellions, and then they got to Jerusalem. So they had been walking through the desert in all this soldier gear, very uncomfortable, having a really lovely time, I'm sure. being away from their friends and their family, and all these other things. All because these Jewish people decided that they didn't want to do what they're supposed to do anymore, according to Rome. So, these Roman soldiers weren't very happy. What they ended up doing, they went, it was a 4-year war between the Jews and Rome. It actually started around the year 66 AD. Jews gathered up supplies and they walled off Jerusalem and they stopped paying taxes. Okay? So, Rome sent messengers saying, we're going to take you out if you don't stop. And then the Jewish leadership basically said, come and take it. Rome didn't like that. So, Rome sends legions of soldiers. And, like I said, they were going through the desert and stuff like this. So, after about 4 years, they were not... they finally get there, and they're finally able to break through the city walls. And this is in August of 70 AD. Now, I would like to mention, I am doing a very brief recap of this whole thing. You should definitely go and watch some other stuff on this, especially if this type of stuff interests you. It's really fascinating. I'm a huge history nut, and I absolutely love this stuff. I could sit and watch this type of stuff all day. So, go and watch more. This is a really, really brief recap. But, where was I? 70 AD, Rome broke through the walls. The soldiers were not happy. They had been sitting out in this hot desert for like 4 years. Now, Josephus, who is a Jewish historian similar to Tacitus that we talked about previously, Josephus records that in this process, Rome slaughtered 1 million Jews. I think it's like 1.1 million Jews. Now, there's others actually. Tacitus, I think it was Tacitus, wrote that it was like 600,000. So they're both maybe skewed a little bit. Either way, it is a lot of people. Josephus actually wrote that after the Romans broke through, they started crucifying people, and they continued to crucify people until Judea ran out of wood, and then they started reusing the crosses. So, I mean, this was massive, massive, massive. In the process of doing this, they destroyed the temple, okay, which is a big deal because Jesus prophesied that the temple would be destroyed. Now, we're going to get into prophecy here in a second, but that makes it a big deal. So, the reason I bring all this up is because if you're writing this after the fact, and you're writing it in a way that tries to make it seem more like Jesus was God, why would you not include the temple being destroyed when he prophesied the temple would be destroyed? Why would there be no mention of the Jewish Holy Land, the capital of the Jewish Holy Land, Jerusalem, being completely destroyed? Like there's no legitimate reason for it to not be included, except that it hadn't happened. So we see all these New Testament writers, no one even mentions it, and they would have been, I mean, Jerusalem is where they would have been a lot of times. They would have been going in and out of, a central hub for a lot of their missions work and things like that. So it doesn't make any logical sense that this is not included, except that it was written prior. The books of the Bible, the New Testament, was written prior to this event. So prior to 70 AD. Jesus died in 33 AD. So that means if they were written between 33 and 70, there's like a 40-year window there. So it doesn't get to that 80 to 90 that we talk about, or that we said was necessary for the minimum required for myth or legend to kind of start. Now, there is, and this is a little bit of an outlier. You can make, I personally think Revelation was written after that. But Revelation is very, very different than the rest of the New Testament. It's not recording things that happened. It's not letters to specific churches there at the time. So Revelation, I do think was written after, but the rest of them were written prior, and that really excludes the idea that it was myth or a legend. Now, why does that exclude that it was a myth or a legend? Because if you know the apostles, the early church, people that knew Jesus, people that walked with Jesus daily, most of them were killed for what they said they believed, not even what they did. So, I'll give you an example. And you might be thinking, well, I mean, so people don't die for lies, or people don't die for things that they know are lies. You might be thinking, well, people die for lies all the time. I disagree with Islam. Obviously, I'm a Christian. People who, let's use the example of 9/11. They were Muslims, and they died for their beliefs, which I say are false beliefs. Does that mean, I said people don't die for things that they know are false. Well, they don't know that that's false. They're not in a position to be able to say definitively, just like I'm not in a position to be able to say definitively, because I've seen it with my own eyes, this is true. Now, if we look at the example of the early church, the apostles, this would be like if, let's say we are doing a podcast. Say we're doing a podcast and we have a group of us going, and this is another story I'm kind of taking from Braxton Hunter. Again, phenomenal stuff he does. He has a book Core Facts. It's really good too. You should check out. But let's say I am doing a podcast, and we have some of our other hosts. Let's say Dre and Andreas and Luke are all on there with me, and we're sitting in the same room. We're actually sitting together recording this thing, and then somebody just walks in and shoots Andreas, like kills him dead. Just walks in, shoots him in the head, walks out. We see Andreas die. Obviously, we're all freaking out. I don't know what I would do. But anyways, so it would be like that happened, and then Andreas, 30 minutes later, just like sits up and he's like, "Hey guys, what's up?" Like, that's going to be a pretty massive thing. I'm going to be telling everybody about it. Anybody I can, because of how miraculous what I just saw was. So let's take this a little bit further, and let's say that I end up talking about it, and Andreas ends up going away, and he tells me I have this message and I need to pass it on to people. So I'm going everywhere I can, talking to as many people as I can, and I end up getting on like Good Morning America, and I'm telling everybody about it. And it's really easy for me to do this regardless of whether it's true or not, because I'm getting a lot of positive from this. I'm getting a lot of people are giving me attention. I'm sure I'd be getting. I could write books. I could do appearances. Like, I could get money. I could get attention. I could get all kinds of stuff, accolades for this. So I finish Good Morning America. I walk out. Someone catches me in an alley. They put a gun to my head, and they say, "You need to say Andreas didn't really come back from the dead." Now, if I know that Andreas did not come back from the dead, would I do that? Would I give my life for something that I know is a lie? And let's say in this situation, I know if I say, yes, he did, then I'm going to die. If I say, no, he didn't, I'm going to live. No sane person does that. Now, not all of the apostles died. because of things like this. There are, and you can find some stuff on this. There's like degrees of certainty we have on some of them dying and the ways they died and things like that. But Paul is one example. I think we're fairly confident Paul was actually executed. He was beheaded. Peter, I think was around the same time. Peter was actually crucified upside down because he didn't deserve to be crucified in the same manner that his Lord was. These are people. Peter walked with Jesus. This is Peter that Jesus said that he called him Peter, which is rock, and it says, "On this rock I will build my church." This is a man who is in as good a position as any to know whether this was true or not, and he died for it. Paul, obviously, Paul didn't walk with Jesus. Paul actually started off going completely against Christianity, going and looking, hunting down Christians. He was super religious, and he actually wanted to extinguish this Christianity blight that was harming his Jewish faith. It was taking people away from what he believed. He had an encounter with God on the road to Damascus with Jesus, changed his life forever. Then he ends up going, like we talked a little bit about in the Christianity and politics. He took advantage of the benefits that he had as a Roman citizen and ended up getting to Caesar. And now we don't see in the Bible that he ended up actually getting to Caesar. There's some extra biblical documents that we can look at, and it does look like he did eventually get to Caesar. I believe God told him he's going to go to Caesar, so I believe that he made it. But then there's some extra biblical documents again that kind of to show that he was beheaded because he couldn't be crucified because he was a Roman citizen. So, people don't die for something that they know is not true. It doesn't make sense. It is completely illogical. So we're able to place this within roughly 40 years of Jesus dying. We're able to say that there's really no evidence that these people are lying about this. So let's it'd be like this is the example I was going to get at earlier. So February 1st of 2003, I'm recording this. It's February 16th of 2023. I just mixed up my years. February 16th of 2023. So 20 years ago, roughly 20 years ago, we had, a lot of you will probably remember the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. That was February 1st of 2003. I personally remember seeing it. It wasn't live that I saw it. I saw it that evening on the news and things like that. But, I remember the event. I remember it happening. I remember people talking about it. It was all over everywhere, right? As much coverage and as much as many eyes were on this that saw this happen, no one can say, yeah, but what really happened. There were let's see, what was it? 7 astronauts. There were 7 astronauts on board, but really they didn't die. One of them was a superhero, and he jumped out, peeled the steel back Superman style, and he threw himself out of the shuttle as it was getting ready to explode. He knew that it was going to explode, and then he actually went and held the pieces together. He had laser eyes, and so he could look at it like Superman, and he could melt the metal back together so it wouldn't actually blow up. It would contain the explosion. And then he was able to actually help the shuttle land in the ocean so that there weren't any issues. No one died. It didn't crash land on Earth and hurt anybody. Obviously, this is a little ridiculous, but we're able to say that didn't happen because, no, I remember seeing it. I actually saw it with my own eyes. I know that didn't happen. So you wouldn't be able to get away with saying something like that because there's firsthand accounts that are there that can completely discredit any claim like that that's being made. So it doesn't make sense that the writers are lying. It doesn't make sense that it's a myth that came up afterwards. What we're getting at so far is the most logical conclusion is that at the very least, the people who were writing the New Testament legitimately believed what they were writing. And they were writing that Jesus is God. And they were writing what is required for salvation. They were writing about the explaining the Trinity, God the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. They were writing about the gifts that we have through the Spirit. They were writing about healing. They were writing about all these other things that are in there. So far, the most logical conclusion is that all of them actually wrote it. We have what they originally wrote, and they actually believed what they are writing. Now, even that by itself doesn't necessarily prove that Jesus was God. Doesn't necessarily prove the resurrection and the different beliefs of Christianity. But the next step, I think, does. Here's the next point I want to talk about. And this is the icing on the cake, if you will. Next, we're going to talk about prophecy. And we actually have a video. It might be the series after this. I don't know. We're recording a lot of stuff kind of together, so I'm not exactly sure how the order it's going to be released. But we're going to be talking about prophecy. We have a video, or a couple videos that's going to be coming out kind of talking about end times prophecy. And some stuff with that. That's mainly because, first of all, it's super confusing. I have literally been in and around the Bible my entire life, and I have trouble following some of this stuff, and it just seems very, it's very difficult to follow sometimes. I think that's somewhat intentional. We'll get into that later. That's neither here nor there. But there's end times prophecy, and then there is other prophecy. So we're going to be focusing now on the other prophecy. Now, the other prophecy, there are two main types. There's messianic, or I consider there's two main types. There's messianic prophecy, that's prophecies about Jesus, prophecies about the Messiah, and then there's non-messianic prophecy. Now, the first one we're going to look at is messianic, and I'll give you a reason why. So, there are prophecies in the Old Testament that talk about Jesus. And this is kind of where the link comes in. So I think we're able to prove the New Testament through what we've gone through so far. This just starts bringing in the Old Testament, in my opinion, like how I'm building this argument. So the first prophecy, the first we'll do a couple of these on different parts of Jesus. So the first section we'll kind of take on is his birth and childhood. The first one of these is that the scepter will come through Judah. So this prophecy is actually made in Genesis. I can't read my typing. Genesis 9 verse 10. It looks like. I don't know if that's right. Oh, 49:10. Maybe that's it. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, so Genesis, it's 49:10. Says, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. This is talking about a scepter as king. It's how you rule. This is coming about Jesus from the line of Judah, from the tribe of Judah. So that's where the prophecy is made. Genesis 49:10. The prophecy is shown as fulfilled in Luke 3, verse 33. Let's look. the son, and this is where it's talking about the lineage of Jesus. So if you're not familiar, the different books of the Bible, they do kind of different things. So like there's a lineage going over tracing Jesus to David, because he has to be an heir of David. So it's tracing Jesus to David through Mary, his biological mother. There's lineage tracing Jesus to David through his earthly father, which is Joseph. So this has to come through the tribe of Judah. So Luke 3 verse 33, the son of Amminadab, the son of Admin, the son of Ram, the son of Hezron, the son of Perez, the son of Judah. Now, if you start, lineages can be hard to get through reading the Bible. It's difficult. There is a purpose to it. Trust that there's a purpose to it. And I've even had some times where stuff is like really resonated with me as I'm reading through the genealogy, and it's just like blows me away. I'm like I would not have expected to get something from reading through that. But all the Bible's there for a reason. It's there with a purpose. All of it's important. All of it should be read. Not all of it is easy to read. Not all of it is necessarily fun to read, but all of it should be read together. That's what the purpose is. That's why it was all put together. But here, Luke 3:33, this is what they're saying. So when they say the son of Amminadab and then the son of Admin, well, it's saying that Amminadab was the son of Admin, and that he was the son of Ram, and then he was the son of Hezron, and then he was the son of Perez, and then he was the son of Judah. So you can see it's kind of stacking it up like a family tree going all the way back up to Judah. So it's prophesied that Jesus, the Messiah, would come through the line of Judah, and Luke is here showing us that Jesus is coming from the line of Judah. That's one prophecy about his birth and childhood. So let's look at another one about his birth and childhood. The prophecy is in Hosea 11, verse 1. Hosea 11:1. And this prophecy is about, it says the Messiah will end up in Egypt. Hosea 11:1. When Israel was a youth, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. The prophecy was spoken in Hosea 11:1. It was fulfilled in Matthew 2 verses 14 through 15. What did I say? Matthew 2? Yeah. My memory is horrible, people, just so you're aware. Oh, that's not the right thing. I did 14_15, and it pulled up every single book in the Bible. Okay. So, Hosea 11:1 predicted that the Messiah, the Son of God, would come out of Egypt. So, Joseph got up and took the child. This is Matthew 2:14-15. Joseph got up and took the child and his mother while it was still night and left for Egypt. He remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet, out of Egypt I called my son. So, another prophecy predicted in the Old Testament, fulfilled by Jesus in the New. Okay, let's go beyond just the birth and childhood. Let's look at his ministry. Let's look at Psalms 78, verses 1 and 2. Okay. Now, this is a prophecy talking about Jesus' ministry, and it's talking specifically about how Jesus is going to teach in parables, which is, I know some teachers that do this. Not all teachers do this. This isn't an extremely unique thing, but this is still I mean, it's somewhat unique. So Psalm 78 verses 1 through 2. Listen, O my people, to my instructions. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old. So, saying Jesus is going to speak in parables. It was fulfilled, Matthew 13, 34 through 35. Now, I told you there was a ton of verses I was going to have to pull up, and so that's why I wasn't able to. Okay. Matthew 13, 34 through 35. It says, all these things Jesus spoke to the crowds in parables, and he did not speak to them without a parable. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet. I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter things hidden since the foundation of the world. So, another one predicted in the Old Testament, fulfilled by Jesus in the New. Here's another one about his ministry. It says his ministry, this is in Isaiah 9, verses 1 and 2. It's talking about his ministry beginning in Galilee. I always misspell Isaiah. I don't know why. Did I get it right? I did not get it right. I always spell it Isiah, and I don't know why, because I know that's not right. So when I say 9, verses 1 and 2. I'm not like, I don't have anything to blame it on either. I'm just stupid sometimes. Okay, so Isaiah 9, verses 1 through 2. This is about Jesus' ministry beginning in Galilee. But there will be no more gloom for her who was in anguish in earlier times. He treated the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali with contempt. But later on he shall make it glorious by the way of the sea on the other side of the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. Those who live in a dark land, the light will shine on them. Now, this was predicted Old Testament, fulfilled by Jesus in the New Testament. Matthew 4, verses 12 through 17. Matthew 4, verses 12 through 17. And I'll throw out a little plug here too. So I'm using, a lot of times when I'm doing the stuff like this, I'm trying to flip back and forth quickly. I will use, it's called BibleGateway.com. It's a pretty good resource. They have a ton of different translations on there that you can pick from. You can go through. I also like Blue Letter Bible is a really good one if you're wanting to do like an in-depth study on a specific passage. I'll probably I might do a tutorial on Blue Letter Bible sometime, but they have a lot of really good content too. But okay, commercial break's over. Matthew 4, verses 12 through 17. Now when Jesus heard that John had been taken into custody, he withdrew into Galilee, and leaving Nazareth, he came and settled in Capernaum, which is by the sea in the region of Zebulun and Naphtali. This was to fulfill what was spoken through Isaiah the prophet. The land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, by the way of the sea, beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles, the people who were sitting in darkness saw a great light, and those who were sitting in the land and shadow of death, upon them a light dawned. From that time Jesus began to preach and say, repent, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. So, that's another one, prophesied in the Old Testament, fulfilled in the New.